You're watching the Autoblog Show. Coming up, this is the Jeep Renegade versus Kia Soul versus Hyundai Kona versus Honda HR-V. Then later, James travels to Park City, Utah for a first look at the Toyota Camry all-wheel drive. This is Autoblog. For over 15 years, our team has covered the auto industry. You can find more of our content at Autoblog.com. But here on the Autoblog Show, each episode features our favorite videos of the hottest new cars from all over the world. This is what moves us.
Oh, that's good.
We're drivers, off-roaders, journalists, tech geeks, gamers, filmmakers, and adventurers. This is Autoblog.
Crossovers are red hot. They come in all shapes and sizes. Americans can't get enough of them. Today we're going to put a spotlight on subcompact crossovers. Those are the small ones, but they offer big personality, plenty of style, and of course, utility and fuel efficiency. Come along with us today as we test these four on the beautiful roads of northern Michigan to select our favorite. When the Kia Soul first debuted back in 2008 at the Paris Motor Show, a lot of people didn't really know what to make of its funky box-like styling. It didn't really fit into any well-defined automotive segment, but that's exactly why it was successful and why it's still around today. In fact, Kia has sold more than 100,000 Souls each year from 2011 through 2018, and it's on track to do it again this year. A turbocharged engine hit the market in 2017, and that 201 horsepower unit is what powers our brand new test vehicle, which despite being all new for 2019, it's just as funky as it's ever been. So the Soul was, my biggest surprise, and I found it engaging and pretty fun to drive, and I really like that attitude that it still has. I think it kind of builds on what Scion was trying to capture before it went away, and some of those quirky vehicles from, the early part of this decade, the Nissan Cube. It's grown up. The front end, I think, is just cool looking, with those kind of thin headlights and that grille. It's a good looking car. Now it has some shortcomings, but overall, I really liked it. I think it came out as one of the stronger vehicles. I'll be interested to hear how the voting broke down, though.
You guys seem to like it more than I did. I had some issues with it. I was not a fan of the way it handled. The steering was really light and sort of twitchy. It leaned a lot in the corners and it sort of just felt less stable. But, it's got that peppy powertrain, pretty big rear storage space, and it's got that funky styling. Mixed bag for me.
I love the styling. It's super funky. It's got great design details, like the headlights, like you mentioned, and how it kind of looks like it goes the full width of the car. I like the wraparound taillight finish. The interior is great. It's really, really spacious for the front passengers, but especially for the rear passengers. The engine is a lot of fun. The 10-inch infotainment screen is really nice too. The lack of all-wheel drive doesn't bother me all that much. I like its handling better than the Jeep.
I feel like it handles pretty good, but I don't feel like it handles good enough for the busy ride. It's pretty stiffly sprung, especially if you're sitting in the back seat, which I did a little bit yesterday. Again, mixed bag. I really liked it. I love the powertrain. I think it's fun to drive, but it's not perfect.
He had $1 for every time.
There we go.
Have fun. Thank you.
Launched in 2014, the Jeep Renegade offers Jeep's familiar characteristics like off-road capability and the iconic grille in a subcompact package. The Renegade is truly an international product. It's made in Italy, and its 1.3-liter turbo 4-cylinder engine comes from Poland. It's all wrapped in all-American styling. For 2019, the Renegade is updated with a new front fascia, aluminum wheels, and new LED headlights. For Jeep fans, the Renegade is an entry point to the brand for those seeking style and capability, but in a smaller package.
All right, so we had a Jeep here, which I think is actually exciting. They're playing in this small segment.
I mean, it's definitely the most utility of all these cars. It's a Jeep, it's all-wheel drive. You know, I would feel comfortable off-road in it. I've never loved the Renegade though, but I'm starting to like it a little bit more after this last go-around. That 1.3-liter turbo is kind of a surprise. There's a lot of turbo lag, but once it gets going, it's pretty potent, and it sounds really good from outside the car, not so much from inside the car. Doesn't really sound like much, but there's like some burbles and almost like crackles from the exhaust. I really also like Uconnect, and I like the way everything is sort of laid out on the center stack. You know, it doesn't handle nearly as well as the other cars, and I'm not in love with the styling either.
I disagree with John on a couple things. I actually like the way
Good,
it looks.
let's have some controversy here.
I think it looks handsome. It's a nice, boxy, rugged-looking little thing. It looks like a tiny Cherokee, or, well, a tiny XJ Cherokee,
Maybe
or
a toaster?
yeah, so does the Soul, but or even like a tiny Wrangler. I do agree, like the engine is really nice. It's got good power. It doesn't feel as quick as the others. I think it's just it's a heavier vehicle. I don't like the handling. It doesn't have a whole lot of grip. It's got a lot of body roll. And what really bugs me is the steering is really vague and no feel. It's not something that's fun to take on corners.
So your initials are JK. You're sort of our Jeep guru, if you will. How do you feel about the smallest of the Jeeps?
I guess as the unofficial Jeep guru, you'd think that I would be most drawn to this vehicle, and you'd be right. It's the one that I want to like. When I'm looking at all the specs on paper, doing my walk around, just like which one of these am I initially drawn to, and it's the Jeep. I actually think the styling is pretty fun. It's kind of like a funky take on the boxy 80s XJ. The headlights I think are super cool also, and they work really well. It's kind of like a modern take on the traditional Jeep front end. The driving experience is the worst part, and that's especially obvious when you drive it back to back with the Kona. Joel's right. The steering is very vague on center. There's quite a bit of movement that you can do, and the car kind of just wiggles back and forth a little bit. It's not super responsive. But I also think we probably tend to focus on those driving dynamics a little bit more than the owner is going to. Very few people are buying a Kona or a Renegade for their twisty road prowess. And the practicality of the Jeep is a big benefit. It's the airiest, it feels very roomy on the inside. We put five people in it and went to dinner, and none of us felt particularly cramped. All in all, I actually really liked it. I wouldn't begrudge anybody for choosing it.
The Honda HR-V actually represents the longest-running nameplate in this group. The HR-V originally launched at the turn of the millennium in both 4-door and 2-door varieties, but was never offered here in the United States. We didn't get the HR-V until 2016, and that version is what we are testing today in a slightly refreshed form for 2019.
So the HR-V, I think, does a lot of, I'd say, little things well. It has attention to detail, but it's got some shortcomings. We actually had a long-term HR-V a couple years back. Didn't grade out so well at the end of its year-long test. Joel, you're kind of an expert on Hondas. What do you think?
I really appreciate the interior flexibility. It's very spacious in there, lots of cargo space. The interior is really nice. It's well finished. It's got nice materials. It's a nice looking place to be. What really hurts it is the powertrain. It doesn't have a lot of power. It's got a CVT that makes it really buzzy. The main thing though that really drove me crazy with it though was the infotainment. It's awful.
Yeah, it's really bad.
I I can't believe Honda still puts this in any of its cars because it has a better infotainment system. Like the infotainment system in the Honda Accord works great.
That's a huge shortcoming, I think, and it actually kind of bleeds over into the temperature controls, because you've got the infotainment right there, and then right below it, you've got this what'd you guys? I'm not touch screens or something. They're like touch pads.
Yeah, they're touch-sensitive buttons.
They don't work really well.
Yeah, it's frustrating, and it's one of those things that you have to kind of like look at it to make sure that you're actually hitting the right spot. And
so it just affects like kind of a bad user experience, like right down the middle.
Honestly, it's the only one that I would really, really not want to park in my own driveway. I hate that transmission. I think it's terrible, specifically because it's working with too little power. The sound of the engine is terrible. It's like drones constantly. It didn't matter if I gave it quarter throttle, half throttle, whatever, it seemed like it didn't go any faster. And it just like stuck at that constant RPM. Like this is the car that gives CVTs such a bad name, and it drives me crazy. It's not all bad though. The steering is very good. It reminds me of like classic Hondas of old 80s, 90s that had great steering.
Hyundai first pulled the wraps off the Kona in June of 2017 as a competitor in the rapidly growing subcompact crossover segment. We got our first crack at it in Kona, Hawaii, of all places, in March of the following year. It was soon followed by an all-electric version. The Kona quickly garnered favor among the general public as well as the automotive press, so much so that it earned the honor of North American Sport Utility Vehicle of the Year at the 2019 Detroit Auto Show.
I really do like the way this thing handles. It turns in quick. It feels really planted. I think this feels the most like a good little car than the rest of the group.
So the Hyundai Kona, for me, this is actually one of the more polarizing ones, but I'll be interested to hear what you guys think.
Yeah, I think it's the most fun to drive out of the four that we have. So they really did a good job on that ride handling balance. The powertrain I also think was really good. It's very closely related to the engine and DCT dual clutch transmission of the Soul, but it's tuned differently. It's a little bit less powerful, I think 175 horse versus 201 horse. The Kona I really, really liked, the demerit being lack of cargo space and tight backseat.
I had so much fun driving this thing. And like Jeremy said, it's a little bit down on power compared to the Soul, but it really doesn't feel like it's that far down on power. It still feels really quick. I mean, the handling makes up for a lot of that. Like, you can carry speed through corners. You don't have to constantly be getting on the gas. It's very fun, and it's probably the one that I would want to take home. But because of how small it is on the inside, it's not necessarily the one that I would recommend to everyone. We couldn't get all of our test luggage into it.
When Joel and I were driving up here, I spent the first couple hours in the Honda, and then we switched and I got into the Kona, and it was much more comfortable. The seating position, I liked spending time in the Kona a lot better than probably any of the other cars.
I sort of like the looks, but like that plastic cladding and like all the stuff that is on there, to me it seems way overly complex. But it has some strong points. The powertrain is very good. You know, like Jeremy, like you said, it's well tuned for its purpose, which is critical. I think the HR-V is slightly more comfortable, but I think the Kona is like right there with it as far as being just, in general, being a very comfortable car. And I'd say ahead of, you know, the Jeep and the Kia.
So the results: in fourth place, Honda HR-V. I did a 100-point scale, so that one is 72 points. Third place, Jeep Renegade at 75 points. Second place, Hyundai Kona at 78.9, so 79. And then the Soul One at 82.5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joel and I think, are pretty happy. I feel like that was just that the strong points of the Soul really carried the day.
For me, it's kind of a bummer because it is the least crossover-y of the bunch, and it doesn't have all-wheel drive. It does everything so well that it just made up for that. And
I think it evoked a lot of strong feelings, which, when you're, putting your points out, distributing them, it picked up a lot of points in areas that, we care about, and that's what helped.
Yeah, I think if the Kona had a bigger back seat, more cargo space, and the Kia's larger infotainment system, it would have been the pick. I'm not surprised that a group of 4 automotive journalists and driving enthusiasts would pick the Kia. It's the most powerful of the group, and it's the weirdest, funkiest.
I'll say this though, for driving enjoyment, we as a group liked the Kona the best.
I'm not surprised by that at all. It's easily the most fun to drive. The thing is though, it's not just the power and the styling on the Soul. What really gets me is it's really, really practical. It's got a lot of cargo room. It's got genuinely livable, usable back seats for full-size adults. It's a practical car. That's a big thing for me. Especially if you're getting a hatchback, you're getting it for practicality.
Right, but what you just said is if you're getting a hatchback.
Yeah,
you didn't say if you're getting a subcompact crossover.
Every crossover is a hatchback if you really want to get down to it. They all have a hatch.
Yeah, sure. I guess the question is, the Kia is a crossover. It's a crossover between a utility vehicle and a hatchback. So it fits the mold. It is, it is. And there's a lot of vehicles in that segment that don't offer all-wheel drive.
The Soul won. This is a fun test. We'll do it again soon.
We are in Park City, Utah. It is absolutely beautiful. It's snowy and cold here, but we are in the Camry all-wheel drive. This is new for 2020. Now, all-wheel drive, increasingly popular for people. It's a big reason why people are going for crossovers. So to sort of stem the tide of that exodus, Toyota has thrown all-wheel drive into this Camry. Now, it is the same platform that's on the RAV4, which has all-wheel drive. That said, the Camry was never intended to have all-wheel drive from the beginning. No, this was something they decided originally, no, we're not gonna have it. But then basically the second that the all-new Camry came out, their market research and their customers started demanding, no, we need this to have all-wheel drive. And so they put the engine, the transmission, and the diff from the RAV4 into here in the Camry. To do so, they did need to change the floor pan, basically, of this Camry to accept that prop shaft, which is actually from the Highlander, not the RAV4. And by taking bits and pieces from all over the place, from that same platform, you get this, the Camry all-wheel drive. Now, there is just the slightest itty bit of performance difference. This makes 202 horsepower with all-wheel drive versus 203. The torque is just a little bit different. Really, you're not gonna really notice. The RAV4 is available with 2 different all-wheel drive systems. One just sends power front to back. The other one sends power front to back as well as side to side in the rear. The Camry is only available with the former one, so there is no torque vectoring on this. it is not just a reactive system, so it doesn't just sense wheel slippage up front and send power to the rear. It can't do that, but instead it's taking in a variety of different inputs from the steering, from the throttle, to anticipate the need for more power at the rear. For instance, if you're gonna gun it uphill, chances are it's gonna send a bit more power to the back. So that is the Camry all-wheel drive system. The road is bone dry here, so we really don't need it at the moment. But we are heading to a winter, icy, slushy, snowy course where we're going to be driving around, maybe occasionally in a straight line, but probably mostly sideways and spinning and, just generally doing snowy stuff. Okay, so apparently it's slushier and slipperier than it was earlier. So, yep. And the thing is, this has all-season tires on it. These are not snow tires. So that should be interesting. So it's set to go up the hill faster than 15. Okay, well, done. This is 25. See, and now we're sliding. Oh, and now it catches. Okay. Well, hello. See, here's the thing. So tires do a lot, and so this says all seasons, not the snow tires. See, we're going over here now. Okay. Tires are the most important thing. If you're driving on snow, get snow tires. It's going to be more important than all-wheel drive ultimately. The other thing is you don't realize how much stability control does. It does an awful lot, to the point that you think you're a hero, and then you turn off stability control, and then you're not here anymore. You are in a snowbank. So important points, snow tires, and don't turn off the stability control, you dingus. So currently, you don't need many fingers to count the number of all-wheel drive mid-size sedans. You got your Subaru Legacy, and you got your Nissan Altima, and yeah, that's pretty much it. The thing with the Legacy is, obviously that's been around forever and it's had all-wheel drive. But, so Toyota's anticipating this having 15% of the take rate all-wheel drive going forward, except they sell over 300,000 Camrys a year, which means if you do the math, that's going to be more than all of the Legacies. So effectively what you're looking at is likely the best-selling all-wheel drive sedan. Now, driving here on this lovely mountain road, I can say that this is definitely a more engaging vehicle to drive than any Subaru Legacy, which is kind of soft, and the steering's kind of nice and friendly, and it's dull. It's dull, is what I'm saying. But the Legacy is available with the big turbocharged engine option. So you have power, and especially when you're here at altitude, that's going to make a difference. The Camry is 4-cylinder only. They thought about putting the V6 with all-wheel drive, but at present only 6% of people choose a Camry V6, so it just didn't make sense to pair all-wheel drive with the V6. The other thing that's interesting about this is that in the past there were other all-wheel drive mid-size sedans. The Chrysler 200, the Ford Fusion had all-wheel drive, but they were just paired with upper trim levels with the more powerful engine option. The fact that this is just with a base model does kind of go about with the democratization of all-wheel drive. It's not just a premium feature anymore, it's something that everybody wants. Couple more facts and figures. This gets 28 to 29 miles per gallon combined depending on trim level. That is a few less than the front drive model. And the all-wheel drive option is around $1,500 more than the comparable front-wheel drive version. Now, does all-wheel drive make a difference on ice and snowy roads? Absolutely it does. But will it make a difference when people are comparing this to, say, a Honda Accord? Definitely, all-wheel drive is a major new option. It's something that people are looking for in, well, places where it snows. But the other question is, will the addition of all-wheel drive be enough to quell that exodus of people from sedans two SUVs. We'll just have to wait and see.